Hi friends, let's take a look at Tezos. So Tezos has been doing really well actually overall over the last wee while. Currently the price is up here at 250, and we were chatting about this yesterday and chatting about this and all of the this noise. I'm sorry about that. I'm just getting rid of this, right? So we were talking about how there's this channel here essentially, and we've come up towards the top end of the channel just now. Now that's great. We're being able to set in a higher high on the daily time frame. That's also great, really good for the overall trend. We are looking back over to our previous sort of pivot point here at that 250, 260 area, where we have the 50% retrace line in at that area. We can see prices turn around from here if we did, and we had a higher low come in thereafter. You know, it could be anywhere, even actually, to be honest with you, as far down as that $2 area, and there's a couple of areas in between, you know, 215 and things like that to be aware of. Just in the immediacy of things, 230 would be ideal to stay above if we wanted to sort of extend this and push it out the way. But given the way that this is ever so slightly, if this were to be a local high and not continue up, then that would be ever so slightly divergent there on the MACD, ever so slightly divergent here, you know, a few instances of it on the Stochastics, and on the RSI not so much, but you could see this actually turn around and get a sort of second rejection from the bullish control zone, you know, a second attempt as an overall upward trend on this RSI, you know, to be aware of. So we could see this operate as a sort of local high, something to be aware of. We've actually seen the prices go up as high as that 260 area really, before turning around on the daily prices in 258 there. So you know, it's like a lot of profit taking could be happening in there in that area. Breaking beyond that area though would be kind of exciting in a way. I would be looking for profit taking targets, I suppose, in that golden zone there, actually at 288 up to sort of 290, if that was the case. I'm not a financial advisor, none of this financial advice, but how do I feel about this overall? Well, you know, at the minute there's this overall upward trend. We're just getting to the point here after having all this upward price action on the ADX to be starting to go towards the upside. Could we see this bearish divergence that we've got bits of playing out a little bit, and as part of the overall upward trend, and when we put in our higher lows and whatnot? Yes, we could, and ideally, I suppose, just in terms of the structure of things, I'd kind of prefer it to stay above 215 overall. Looking towards the other exchanges, what can we see here? 50% retrace struck there as we expected, I suppose, in that sense. It would be the same on all the charts, really, essentially. Sorry about that, yeah, of course. And what are we looking at on HitBTC? Well, I used to have, is this HitBTC? This is HitBTC, right? Okay, actually, yeah. So I wanted to see this because we've not looked at this in a wee while, where we had our channel from before, and you know, we're just in that where we could ask a question: are we breaking out of this, or are we faking out of this? Well, the volume on this here isn't actually anything to write home about. You can see it's been slightly diminishing as we've been coming up towards the top end of the channel. So you know, are we having a breakout of this right now? I wouldn't really say so. Not so much. We had that horizontal line drawn in there at 258, and we've we've left a little bit on the table on this chart for the other guy, coming up as high as 255, but on the sort of the other exchanges, it got a little bit, just a couple of cents higher. You know, we want to see the prices, of course, you know, because we've managed to break above this area of the sort of 230 that we spoke about as well. We want to see them be able to sustain themselves in this area where we saw the market previously kind of pivot towards the downside, of course. But not going to get too worried about things. Should we see the diminishing in the price? Because you know, the median line of that channel is in there, the 250 area, the 21, and at $2 itself, and all of those are kind of reasonable enough things to look to towards the downside. Should you know, you just want to have the natural ups and downs that happen in markets, you know. So that's kind of the situation there. Is there the divergence that we're looking at here on the oscillators down below? And the MACD, it's sort of class B between these last two highs, but of course, just generally speaking, it's on the way down. The DMI is looking good, and which is a good thing. The stochastics have got that sort of slightly downward slopey toppy area of that. Could we see it turn around and create that divergence? We could, so I'd be aware of that one. And the RSI, same story as well, with that. Let's go look at the Bitcoin prices just a little bit and see. Well, we're actually made it a bit more into the bullish control zone here, and actually though this could turn out though to be class B bearish divergence. You could have a little touch of bearish divergence there as well. You could have it here on the MACD as well. So there's these things to be aware of as we come up towards the 50% retrace line, and we've managed to do certain things like make a higher high, stuff like that, in terms of this overall movement. If we want to go in and actually make proper higher highs in terms of the daily time frame against Bitcoin, you need to see it going up to 3,500, 3,500, and towards that 618 retrace area and stuff like that. And I would be happy enough to see us kind of coming in retesting the 3,200 area again, and setting in a higher low. In fact, this here is almost a bit generous to say is our local low, and I would almost be content enough with this to come back down to the 382. But I want to see support above there, as we've said in so many videos recently as well, just in terms of purely looking at how things could go. If you've gone up and touched the 50% retrace like we have here, and you go back down to the 382, that's the equivalent of a 236 retrace, for instance. Over here, the 236 coming in there at 3,150. Kind of want to see things stay kind of, we want to see things staying like really positive. Then going down at 3,150 would be cool if we can come back up above to that 3,500 area. But if we need to go down to 2,900 or to get a higher low in, that's okay. 2,800 even is still bearable in terms of higher lows, staying above this other Fibonacci retracement. But generally speaking, that's what we'd be looking for overall in terms of if there were to be a retracement before we needed to turn bearish on it, so to speak. Right now, having come up as high as this is good. Is 35,000 on the cards before we have a lower low or higher low? That's the kind of the question that we need to see. And then, should we get that higher low, and is it going to be a higher low, or have we got a potential retrace going back down below the sort of speculative 236 Fibonacci retracement point? Just again, just to sort of point that out, for instance, would be in that sort of 3,150 area, for instance. You'd be kind of thinking, could we come down and try 2,800 or whatever? And you'd want to see the prices turn around there before going back up for another retest of that upper areas again. And that's kind of how I have to do it for us overall. There's touches of divergence there, there's touches of things which could be bearish, but overall the market's quite bullish. If we don't go up as high as our previous sort of daily highs though, and put in a lower high, then you could be looking and saying this is overall a downward trend, So we'll have to see how things go at these more critical areas in terms of the bigger picture. But in terms of that bigger picture, looking towards the weekly chart here, so long as the prices stay above this 50% movement retrace area at that 3,250 area, then we're getting this weekly upward trend high coming in quite good at the minute. That's good to be there. Of course, we could then we want to be going up to just the same story, 3,500 and beyond, to get the actual highs on. But as an intermediate area to be aware of, closing out the week above this area is important and good for us, and we could see a higher low coming in, and then going on up again thereafter. How are we going to handle these areas in the next while? The charts in themselves are not inherently predictive, so you couldn't actually say, but those are the questions that we can find by looking at them. And and then we can, and then as time goes by, we'll see the answers unfold, and we'll be prepared in advance to respond, hopefully accordingly. So yes, thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. A friend of yours is a friend of mine. I hope my video stayed recorded throughout this episode. I was delayed at the start, so that kicks back to the end, and maybe my face is cut off. And if that's happened, well, I'm sorry. And yes, thank you so much. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Share it with a friend. And we're coming up to 500 subscribers, which means that I can get I'm going to do a little sort of bonus for people who want to join up to Bybit, because I've negotiated with them on behalf of us, the Rocky Outcrop community. So I'll be talking about that a wee bit more over the next few days and stuff, and I really appreciate it. I'll catch you next time.